Can I say, first of all, that the only hatred expressed outside is the hatred of genocide and the slaughter of children. British companies are supplying weapons to the Israeli armed forces to commit genocide.
I've admonished her for talking that way. So, I want a simple question. I've made the rules clear, and the first speaker did breach the rules. So basically, I want a simple question. That's what I want.
British companies like BAE Systems are supplying weapons. I was told by one of your candidates that if we stop supplying weapons, it reduces British influence. British influence is going to disaster in Palestine. So my question is, would the candidates withdraw all arms licenses for British companies selling to Israel? By the way, I'm not interested in what the racist here has to say.
I didn't quite catch your name, but thank you for the question. I want to start by saying that I recognise that the sale of arms causes damage and destruction. I used to work at Oxfam GB as their head of UK campaigns, and one of the campaigns that I ran was to stop the sale of British bombs to Saudi Arabia for the dropping on Yemeni civilians. So that campaigning is ingrained in some of my back history. What Labour has said around the sale of arms to Israel is that a new government would not be selling arms to Israel, that we would be supporting the International Criminal Court in taking forward the proposal for arrest warrants for certain Israeli government officials, that we respect the independence of the ICC, and we've repeatedly called on the Netanyahu government to stop its offences and to call for an immediate ceasefire. So that's the position of the Labour Party. I realise you asked a very specific question around arms sales, but I want to give you a direct answer as well as some additional context there.
Yeah, hello. Continually selling arms to a situation like that does feel like pouring petrol on fire. And I think we run the risk and the danger of becoming immune to the absolute pain and horror. So I would be in favour of an embargo of some sorts. Because it's simply unacceptable. As I say, I'm introducing that. But I think we also have to acknowledge and be very, very careful. It's very attractive and easy to take sides. I take a very simple and clear side, no violence, and a side in favour of dialogue. And I'm not talking about what happened here, which is clearly shared with passion. I'm talking about some ways across the globe, at a safe distance, sides are taken, and that actually has an inflammatory consequence. I think from the very moment of beginning, we need to speak to all sides in terms of how, and I'm not talking about governments, I'm talking about sending messages to populations at all sides. I have run a number of projects in Palestine and Israel, and mixed identity groups in this country. And I was very moved the other day at a message from an former Israeli participant. We were reflecting on the time where he gave the Shabbat ritual to a mixed group of Palestinians and Israelis. And he said, that seems like 1,000 years ago now. How can we get this back? So anything we do, we can have angry protest and passionate protest. And I understand where that comes from. We have to find ways of speaking to those that we wish to engage with. As Nelson Mandela said, we do not make peace by speaking to our friends. And I am concerned that the inflammatory rhetoric shores up sides. There's a clear, palpable inequality in terms of arms and their usage and the consequences. The deaths on one side of this horror clearly outweigh another. And we need to take that into considerable check using international organisations and whatever power that we have. But we also need to be considered and measured and understand the historic and passed on trauma that many people from the Israeli communities experience. That's it, I'm afraid. Simple talk.
Palestinian deaths for me to realise that a ceasefire was the right thing. The inaction on this from Labour and the Tories is utterly unforgivable. The Green Party position is really straightforward. We believe that there should be a durable political solution that ensures security and equal rights for Israelis and Palestinians. That means we end the system of apartheid that is currently in place. We need an urgent international effort to end the illegal occupation of Palestinian land. We need an investigation and the persecution of those who carry out war crimes. It shouldn't need to be said, but I absolutely believe in an end to all arms exports and military aid cooperation with Israel. I'm proud that one of the first things myself and the rest of the Green Group did was bring a motion calling for a ceasefire, and I think it is shameful that there are many members of the traditional parties who could not support us in that call for peace. I'm going to repeat myself with any of you who have heard me talk before on this, but I just cannot imagine what it must be like as a clinician in Gaza. I've had some horrific moments working for the ambulance service where you look at what the demand is and what you've got, and you are terrified that you cannot help everybody. And I just think if I was in one of the remaining hospitals that hasn't been bombed, how I would feel if I could shut out all the rest of the horror, looking through the number of, its acronym that I've only just learned, WCNSF, Wounded Child, No Surviving Family. What is happening in Gaza is a stain on our conscience, and it cannot continue.
Well, as much as it pains me to agree with a Lib Dem, because it doesn't happen very often, I'll have to say I do totally agree with what John said. I can't really add much more to it. The question was about whether we would approve arms sales, British arms sales, and I would have to also agree with that. I think an embargo is the only sensible way forward. So, seeing as the gentleman over there doesn't want to hear from me anyhow, I'll pass the microphone on.
Whoa!
Just to, I would just like to admonish the Christian maker. I think for civil discourse, I think calling him a racist was a bit uncalled for and unnecessary in this situation, regardless of your views on him. Anyways, regardless, I'd actually prepared a statement on a charged subject, which is as follows. Unlike some political parties, the SDP does not obsess about conflict in the Middle East. We are more concerned about solving our own problems, which are frankly, as British citizens, more important. Nevertheless, the SDP will support action to bring dispute to a swift and peaceful conclusion that minimises the loss of life on both sides. We support the idea of two states living peacefully as neighbours and will play our part in international affairs to achieve this. But this will only succeed by building confidence in peaceful solutions.
You'll never get into power.
Just to keep this quite brief, yes, I would be against selling arms to Israel. And also, I think we need to look into what else we're selling arms to other nation states. We have a very strange relationship with some states in this area, and I think we should be looking into that because it runs deeper as well. We're selling off national assets to them, and that's a huge worry. I'm not talking about Israel, not necessarily Saudi Arabia, other countries with difficult human rights records. So, but yeah, I would be against selling arms.
Thank you for the question. This is a very, very difficult subject indeed. It has taxed Parliament daily over the number of months that this has been going on. I was the first parliamentarian after the 7th of October attacks, but before Prime Minister Netanyahu rolled the tanks in to say don't do it. don't send in your military, your huge military might, unless you have some form of plan, a strategy as to where this goes. It's absolutely right that Israel has a right to defend itself. I'm going to finish my sentence because you cut me off halfway. I stand here today saying you can support the state and the people of Israel and criticise their utility of military force, which has been wrong without a plan, and equally stand here and criticise Hamas for what they did, but be supportive of the Palestinian people. And that's a far more nuanced position than I'm afraid it's become very, very binary. It's either right or wrong. It's not as clear cut as that. No, let me get to that point. I'm talking about the bigger picture here. Okay, so now you're just shouting at me and nobody can hear what you're saying. Right. I make it really, really clear. It is our concern. The way that it was dismissed earlier is completely wrong. What happens in the Middle East, in the same way as what happens in Ukraine, affects Britain. It affects the international community of which we are part of and we are a leader of as well. We have a permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council. It's thanks to our work with our colleagues that's got a ceasefire as a UN resolution. That's very, very important indeed. I'll be clear. If it can be a leverage for a wider strategic direction, then yes, it makes sense to hold back arms sales. But if you're simply doing it to make yourself feel better here in the UK, like the call for a ceasefire on the second day of this, it doesn't wash, it doesn't lead to it. You speak to Hussein Zumlot, who's the Palestinian ambassador. I met him last Thursday, and he makes it very, very clear that he wants to see a ceasefire pushed in straight away. The only way that you're going to get that is firstly by Hamas stopping sending their bombs and by Israel from stepping in their bombs as well. This is the bigger picture that we need to focus on. And until we get to that bigger picture, then I'm afraid that the crisis will actually continue. No stakeholders in charge of what's going on there. And that's a reflection, I'm afraid, of the dangerous world that we've now entered. We need to be far braver in working with our allies to actually push Israel back, absolutely right, but also stand firm with Hamas, stand firm against Hamas as well.
Yeah, just to remind the audience, when someone's speaking, don't drown them out because it makes things very complicated. Basically, we won't get another question in.